So if you're a foodie and a book lover like me, buckle up, friends. I am thrilled to have Emily Arden Wells with me. I was so honored to read her debut book, Eat, Post, Like as an ARC. That's advanced reader copy. And it made me feel all the feels. And I reached out to her and she said, yes, let's chat about it. So I'm really excited to have you here. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
We will definitely be covering a lot of your book and your own foodie journey as well. But can you share a little bit about yourself, your different career journeys, and how you came to write this book?
So, I am Emily Arden Wells, and I joke that I have 17 jobs at all times. I am now an author of Eat Post Like. It comes out on June 3rd. I am trained as an architect. I still work as an architect a little bit. And I also run a digital media agency called 5 O'Clock Creative, where I work with spirits companies. And I create content, I do photography, I do social media.
A woman of multi-passions. I feel you very deeply on.
Many jobs,
Yes.
lots of things to do. No
Yes.
sleep for the weary.
Yes.
Um,
But lots of joy, right? Through all the
yeah,
different.
so
Um,
much joy. Yeah, and I'm lucky to really love all the things that I do. And I think that's been the hardest thing for me is that I'm such a creative person that um, there's always something else that I'm interested in and that I want to try to master. So I constantly have to kind of pull myself back and be like, you don't have time for that. Um, but I'm very lucky to do what I love.
can you tell us about how you came to publish your book?
When COVID hit, I had just had a baby in 2019, end of 2019. So 2020, he was still very, very young, and I was definitely grounded, had a new company, couldn't do anything. And another writer reached out to me. He basically pitched me my cocktail book idea. And so I was like, well, you're probably going to write that without me. Or I could just join the project. So I joined the project. He's like, I have an agent. You'll love him. His name's Steven. He's great. And Steven and I really hit it off. Like to this day, we can't get on the phone and not be on the phone for like 2 hours. So we have this incredible relationship. And he kind of brought this concept to me that they were looking for a writer. And it was just similar enough to my own life. So Cassie in um, the book is Eat Post Like, by the way, and this is my novel. But Cassie in the book is a lawyer and she has had this professional life. She's had this professional trajectory. And then she does this hard pivot due to circumstances in her life and is kind of thrust into the food world. And that was very much kind of what happened to me. It was much slower of a pivot, but it was still kind of a hard pivot. And I was like pretty green. I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't terribly confident, but I was at the table with these writers from, you know, Food and Wine and Travel and Leisure and Wall Street Journal and like I definitely put in the work to get there, but I like always felt like a fish out of water. It always felt like I did never really, you know, belong there. Which I don't know if I would still feel like that, but who knows. But anyway, so it was like adjacent enough to my own life that I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can make that awesome. And so, yeah, kind of dug in, and then it was, and now here we are, and here it is in printed form. It's in the world, and it comes out on June 3rd, and it's very exciting and scary. Um, yeah, but there's a lot of it that reflects my life, and there's a lot that doesn't. Um, but hopefully it will give like a window into a world that a lot of people don't really get to experience because it is like such a weird, nuanced world. Um, yeah, and yeah, I hope people enjoy it. I enjoyed writing about the food. It was really fun.
Oh, I was like salivating. I was like, oh, that sounds so good. I was imagining all these things. I would consider I'm not like a huge foodie. I'm not like, crazy foodie, but I would definitely say I love food. And I am a numbers person, so when there was an accountant foodie in the book, I was like, hey, I
That's me.
absolutely relate. And I have a food Instagram, or at least I did until I kind of pivoted. Um, so there were a lot of things right out of the gate that, I resonated with. And thankfully, I have not had the huge traumatic pivot that Cassie needed to make, or what kind of instigated that, thankfully. But
And
I've
neither
definitely,
have I. So that was actually really hard to write. Okay, so spoiler. I'm sorry.
yes, spoilers. Let's say that there
Spoiler.
will be spoilers in this. So
There will be spoilers.
yes,
Um,
save it and come back later, if or move forward if
yeah. Fast forward. I don't
yeah.
know. Read the book, then come back.
Yeah,
Um,
save and come back.
so Cassie's boyfriend at the beginning of the book, his name is James, and he tragically dies. And so she basically she like discovers this secret that he's been keeping from her and decides to undergo, like to take on this journey that he was invited on. So, that's kind of, I'll leave it at that because there's like twists within there, but that's kind of the premise. And so, writing about grief is really, really difficult for me because I have been fortunate enough to not really experience a lot of that close to me. And I would listen to a lot of music and listen to a lot of audiobooks and listen to a lot of stories, but you know, going that deep was very hard. It was very difficult. Um, so I have a friend who's actually a grief counselor, and I ran into her the other night, and I was like, I wish I had known that you were doing this like 2 years ago. Because
Yeah.
I would have called you and picked your brain on how to do this, and like how to write it authentically. I tried to make it as like authentic to grief that I have had in my life that wasn't necessarily like death based, but because like, we've all experienced loss in some way. If it's loss of a job or a boyfriend, but like we all like experience it, or even friends. Like sometimes having those best friend breakups are just so heartbreaking and hard. So like I was able to kind of tap into a lot of those feelings of grief and sadness, but it was challenging to write.
Yeah. There are a lot of important messages and themes, things that I felt deeply. But before we get into that, is there a specific message or feeling that you want people to come away with after reading the book?
I mean, I think that the biggest thing that I wanted to take away was that I wanted people to understand that I wanted people to dream. I want people to be able to look at their own lives and say, maybe I can do that. And that the universe always has a plan, but like sometimes you just have to put things out into the universe. And, even now, like I have like those small little whispers of dreams that I wish for myself. And like, sometimes they're as small as like wishing on an eyelash. But, when you put those manifestations into the universe, you slowly start to become more confident with them, and you start talking to other people about them. You start planning towards them, and then you start building your goals around them. And like that's really, the like building the confidence around building dreams and making those dreams to come to fruition. In this story, Cassie is, very she's very limited by her career. She's put all of her life and soul and every single cell of her body into her career, which like I was very much that way, like living and breathing my job and still feeling very unsatisfied with it. And she was kind of throughout the story she's kind of putting these little wishes out into the universe to for something different and something new and something to happen. So I don't know, I guess one of my big takeaways is like trust the universe. Let the universe take the wheel and like let it happen. Make your wishes, put it out there, and the universe always like it knows the right path and it knows which way to take you. And yeah, trust the process, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things I definitely took away from it because I know we were chatting before this, and there were some big life decisions that I made. And I think COVID was a big thing for all of us, right? Where we started thinking about life priorities. And for Cassie, it was kind of this, oh, is work really this thing that I want to be spending my time on and miss out on all the other relationships and experiences that I could have in my life. And, I have not had like this crazy corporate life. I have lived the corporate life where we all have that mom guilt. We all have the, oh, what if I did these things? And maybe that's why my YouTube journey started, where I kind of started as a hobby just for fun
Right,
during
right.
COVID. And then now I'm like, oh, this can be something more. I'm going to dream it into something bigger and something more amazing. And maybe someday I'll get to take trips
Yeah, I mean
to do
that's
fun
that's
things, you
like
know?
the way, you just kind of have to start. You can never do anything new by just thinking about it
Yeah.
or by watching other people or liking Instagram, you know, videos or like, or you just have to start. You just have to start the process. It's a matter of just ripping the band-aid off and just doing it.
Yeah.
Like I always wanted, I've always wanted to write a book. I always thought it was going to be a cocktail book. And I probably have one of those very near in my future. But I always wanted to write a book. And I remember at one point when I was on the road, I was like looking around this amazing scene. I was probably in some like absurd castle or something, like just insane, really like Scotch brands would take us. And we were like, wow, and I was like, this would be an amazing novel, like this would be an amazing romance story. And, I just kind of held on to that dream, and then this opportunity presented itself, and it was like, yeah, this is the book you should write. So yeah, dream big.
Yeah. And I love that story too, because sometimes it's the things that we say yes to, right? We're doubtful. We don't know where it's going to go, but we say yes to it. And I feel like my life has been a lot of that of, okay, just say yes and figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
So I love that message from your own story.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to say yes to things. Otherwise, I mean, like, I think it's a balance, like saying yes and no, and like figuring out what the right path is.
Mhm.
But sometimes those things that feel really, really scary, that feel really terrifying, and are like really uncomfortable, like that's where you need to go because that's where the growth is. That's where the challenge is, and that's where you're outside of your comfort level, and then you're really going to push through into that next frontier. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. But I also resonate with Cassie of like trying to hold on, I thought I was going to leave the corporate life and pursue the creative thing full time. And then yet another opportunity fell into my lap, right? So I said, oh,
Mhm.
well, I'm going to go with this stable thing for a while. And then we'll still kind of cultivate it on the side. So we'll see where my journey goes. But I definitely felt Cassie and the need for,
Well,
this is what I was trained for. This is what I was, yeah.
you're a modern woman, right? Like I think that, and this is also important to me when I was like writing this book, and some of my editors were like, I don't know about this moment, like this doesn't feel authentic to me. And I was like, this is totally something I would do. Like this is how I would behave. Like me personally, but like I think I am no different than like so many people in the world. But like us as like modern women, we are proud of our careers. We're proud of what we've done. We're proud of our accomplishments. And it's hard to leave that behind, no matter how toxic or awful or abusive it was. My architectural career was I worked for a couple very, very high name architects, and I won't name them. I worked for some pretty high profile architects on very high profile jobs, and it was super intense. And that environment, super toxic. And
Mhm.
when I finally got out of there, I like left kicking and screaming. It was really hard for me to leave because I kept trying to like prove myself. I kept trying to prove that I was better than this, that I could like make them see that I was like worth it, that I was actually good, and it was so hard for me to understand that they were never going to value me ever, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how many 100-hour weeks I clocked in. Like it never would have mattered. It was like an abusive boyfriend situation, but still, like I mourned leaving those jobs. And like as I've even pivoted to all this other creative stuff, there's still a part of me that mourns not being in architecture all the time. That still feels like I haven't lived up to my potential in that world. And I'm not done with architecture. I always want to come back to it. There's always a part of me that loves design. And but it's like this hard balance of figuring out, how to kind of deal with all these different pressures that we have as women and as mothers and as wives and girlfriends and like all of these things to just operate in the world. Like it's a lot for women. And I don't think that we should underestimate that we are allowed to have complex feelings about all of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah,
we're yeah, I mean
100%.
all of it. It's complex and hard and messy and sticky, but also the best and beautiful and all of those things. But um, yeah, I think there's like the truth is in the complexity.
Hmm. That kind of brings me to a good question where there's a theme, right? Spoilers, right? We talked about
Hey, spoilers.
um so there's a big thing about asking or being afraid to ask your partner or the other person, the important people in your life, whether they'd be part of that thing that you don't know if you should share, right? So in this case, James had this secret thing that we kind of don't know all the details, of what he was thinking, but he was definitely thinking of her and wanted to tell her, but didn't want to rock the boat or was afraid of how she would take it. And so it was this big thing that hurt both of them, right? And
Right,
it took this big incident to make her realize that she wanted to be part of it. But at that point, it was too late to do that with him. So
right.
that was heartbreaking for me to see,
Yeah,
her grappling with all of that, and for him to want to
yeah.
bring her in, to have this person that's really important to him be part of that, but not be able to invite her.
Yeah, I think that he always felt pushed away. And so, like, I think that that was part of what I was trying to translate with that story was that with her being so obsessed with her career and being so focused and, alpha about her career, she had kind of pushed away this man who was like in many ways really great for her, but in many ways, wasn't the best fit. Um, and I think that, again, it's complexity of the realities of the world. Like sometimes we have dreams that we know that our partners aren't going to be 100% on board with. Then we know our parents are going to be 100% on board with it. But like, it's just, I mean, that's something that we all like struggle with all the time. Is figuring out what we want versus what the world wants from us, right? And I think yeah, in that relationship, it went both ways. Like they were both like hiding things from each other because they could never be fully honest with probably primarily first with themselves and then with the other as a partner. So I'm sorry that broke your heart, but also, yay, I did my job.
That's what it's supposed to do, right? Evoke all the
Yeah.
feels. And of course, I think in the life stage that I'm at, as a mom, as a wife, as a working mom, right? All these things definitely tugged at the, okay, what is important in my life? Am I spending it with the people that I care about? Am
Right.
I asking for what I need also? Because there are all these creative things that I want to do. And if I'm not sharing that with my husband, right, to say, this is important to me, I would like to carve out time for it. He doesn't know. Well, maybe he does because I talk about it all the time, but, and if he listens, right? Which he does. So, it's just, I think often as moms, as women, we feel afraid to ask for things.
Hmm.
And so I guess this was a flip side of James wanting to ask her to be part of his world and, give up some of that work priority or workaholism on her end. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's really hard to ask. And
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to ask. I
because that could
get,
have been the end of the relationship, right? And to your point, maybe they weren't a great fit together, but we're often afraid to end things that perhaps need to be ended, I guess.
yes. Yeah. That's a whole other book.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's a whole other world.
But these are all the different tangents that my brain went on of, oh,
Oh,
it's one
that's so
story,
great to
but all
hear.
different.
I mean, it's really, really beautiful to hear your feedback on the story and what was speaking to you both in like inspiring way, but also in kind of that really ripped at your heart. It's just wonderful to hear the feedback, because writing, I did not know this, but writing is really solitary. Like you are in your head and
Mm.
you're kind of you know just working through, just slogging through this book. And like I said, like I probably should have written a cocktail book first because I was like, there are so many words in this book. It's a challenge and you're doing it a lot by yourself. And even through the editing process, like it still feels very solitary. Even through the like it coming out into the world, it still feels very solitary. And I was actually just talking to a writer friend the other day about it, that it's just you're just constantly in your own head about it. And to finally have it like start seeing the light of day and have people be reading it like yourself, and to hear how it's touching you, just it just means the world to me. So thank you.
Of course. I'm glad we get to have this chat. I will also now bring up then a few things that really hit me deep. I know I talked about one already. These were like smaller things or maybe lines that were in there that I went, oh, yeah, that's good.
I
So
love
one
that.
of them, I'll stand up for my shirt because this is one of the shirts that I like and it reminded me of, but amen. Amen. Do you say amen? Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay.
Even though in my head it was like amen
And you
forever. And then it
you
was
were the
like,
author. So
that's not right. It's amen.
so there are these scenes where he's just nice to strangers, right? He's just this charismatic person. He's nice to people, it's a person at the train station, grocery store, staff, at a restaurant, whatever. He's just nice to people. And, when Cassie says something, he says, well, I can't remember what the exact wording was, but it's basically like just be nice to people, make another person's day better. It's nothing to you to just be nice, right? And I feel like kindness, we need more kindness in the world. So
Especially
that
right now and online.
yes, yes, yes. Oh, that's another thing that we will touch on, but I think I have to stand up because I don't think you can see my
No, I
shirt.
can't see
But
it.
I love it says be the reason
Oh,
someone smiles today. Like I saw this shirt and I had to get it because um it's just
yeah.
you can do little things to
Yeah,
make someone's you never know what someone's going through.
just little things that make such a big difference. And so that characteristic was actually based on my dad.
Mm.
My dad is like one of those people um, who really, really just kind of breezes through life. Like he's like very handsome, he's very charismatic, but he really takes time to see people, and just always like making sure to talk to the waiters and waitresses and making people laugh and making people feel good. It's those small, tiny little moments, but you can tell that like that brings him so much joy. And so like I've really tried to do that and, chatting with the people at the checkout at the grocery store and I constantly like telling my son, like, say thank you, look them in the eye, say hello, like even if they're not talking to him, because it makes a difference. And, I think one thing that we've all learned lately is, COVID was extremely isolating. And when we were all kind of afraid of the world around us, it felt terrible. I read the statistics, but like humans are now less social than they've ever been. We're all like
Yeah.
still in front of our screens and very isolated, and we're missing a lot of those like human touch points. So I figure when I am out in the world, like I'm going to try to be as nice as I can to everybody. Um and like you know those people, those guys, they're just like they are so charming. They are so charming. So
Yeah.
like that was who I wanted to make him, was just like just just so charming and like lovable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're all like, oh, we like you.
We do, we do.
Oh,
And it
you.
was also a reminder to myself, so often, like when we're waiting in a grocery store line or whatever line, it's just easy to whip out your phone and you don't talk to
Mhm.
anyone around you. but I've had some really great conversations just in the grocery line or, whatever. Um, so I think it's just a good reminder for myself to like look around, right? Smile at people. Like if you're going on a walk, smile at the other person that's walking on the other side. Don't you know?
Totally. Yeah. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
It's, I do have those tendencies too of like, because I grew up in a small town. So I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, and I'm like
I've
waving
lived
at
half my
everybody.
life in Silicon Valley where people are just like,
Oh
get
yeah,
to where you're going.
that's a different
Um,
beast altogether. But New York's the same way. Everybody's like,
go, go,
anyway.
go. Yeah. So it's just,
Oh,
a cognizant thing for me. But as we talk about devices and social media, we have Rebecca, right? Rebecca is a character that travels with them, and she is older. And so she has this line where she's just like, oh, you kids in social media, right? Go live your life.
put
And
the damn thing down.
yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I know, Rebecca, I know. But then I also heard Ben's voice of, but it's my life now. It's my job. My people are waiting for me. I have to keep doing it or else I become irrelevant. And not that I have this huge following, but like, I hear you, Ben. And
Yeah,
we gotten into this loop, right, of social media and that becoming a job for people.
right.
Um, I heard those
You heard
messages
both
loud
sides
and
of it.
clear.
Well, hopefully, as we all continue to balance social media in our lives and we teach our kids how to balance social media, that, both of those angels, the angel and the devil, will continue to sit on your shoulders. I'm sorry that they are now characters from my book, but that they will, remind you to put it down, but then also let you pick it up and, share your joy that way. It's a matter of balancing it. It's I always think of it as a tool now. I've definitely gone through phases where I've been like extremely addicted to it.
Mm.
And even now I find everybody finds themselves in those cycles where we're looking at it more than we should. And, you can feel it in your soul and in your neck and, in your thumbs. And, we all feel it, but I think it's just a matter of remembering that it's not reality and that, life is best spent, actually living. So, I just hope for my son that, that he isn't fully dependent on it and that he can find joy in other ways that are kind of outside of the screen. I mean, that's my goal as a mom, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. And I've had many conversations with my kids where they're like, Mom, you're on your phone. And I'm like, I know, you're right. But when you have a full-time job and you're trying to do all the other stuff not on your full-time job time,
right.
it has cut into my time, overlap time with my family. And that's been something I've been very thoughtful of, okay, let me be really productive at certain times so that it doesn't cut into my precious family time and that they don't always see me on my phone because that's not how
Hmm.
I want them to remember me or, it's not a great model for them to follow. So, um, Rebecca will sit on my shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris Hayes has a new book about kind of the addiction with smartphones and technology and screens. And I haven't read it yet, but I've listened to an interview with him and it seemed to be dead on, and same thing of like as parents, how can we be telling our kids not to look at screens or to put their tablets away or whatever? And then we're literally back on our phones in 2 seconds. So
Yeah.
um yeah, we're all going to be fighting it for some time. We're all going to be fighting those urges and putting it down. And but I find that I could do best if I like plug it in downstairs and then I can't even look at it, just
Yeah. It's
out
just
of the
about being
room.
intentional with what you're doing, right? And I think you're right on where you say it's a tool. It's not, something to like, I mean, sometimes you're entertained on it, but if we can think of it more as a tool. Yeah.
Right, right.
I also want to talk about Rebecca has some really great lines and wisdom, right? Where
Yeah.
I think I wrote this down. She says, "Stop apologize." This is towards the end, right? So again, spoiler alert. But she says, "Stop apologizing. This is your life. You get to live it however you want." And you know what? Life is messy. We make mistakes. We walk down the wrong road, but it's the mistakes that make for great stories. So let them happen. Stop trying to plan and control everything. Just let go and live your life for you unapologetically. So yeah, I think a lot of times we've kind of touched on this, but we feel like we
I like
have
that we both like got verklempt during that. Like we both were like, I need to swallow hard with that one. Um, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I just had to stick a pin in that because we both were like,
yeah, no, it's I think there's a lot of we need to be perfect. We need to do well. We need to show, like we can do it. We've got it together. But I feel like in the vulnerability comes really great things, like especially in my like mom community, right? And where I'm striving to help moms thrive. Like this is
mm,
like we don't have it together and we're better together and it's it's magical I think when we do let go of that perfection and we
yeah,
strive to be better each day, and our kids see that too, and I think that is actually a beautiful thing where we're able to show them nobody's perfect and it's okay, we all make mistakes, we learn from them, and we live our life our way,
right.
have to live it someone else's way. So
Yeah, I
thank
mean, again, like that, like I feel like I wrote that as like me in the future talking to myself right now.
you. Yeah.
Like what I wanted to hear, what I needed to hear, but also, again, like so much of the pressure I feel just as being a woman and just trying to get it all done,
Yeah.
and like let it be messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Not everything has to be perfect, Emily.
Yeah.
And and like, yeah, just go live. Um, I was very fortunate that I was able to kind of, live and let live, as it were. And I didn't feel as much pressure when I was traveling. I felt like that was the goal at the time. Um, but now it's just, everything feels like it's, the stakes are higher now. So, well, once again, I am glad that it touched you.
Yeah. And overall, I think food is magical. I think it is a connector for people. I think it transports us to memories. I remember like my childhood going to Japan every summer and cooking with my grandma and my aunts, and it's
Oh,
such like a
so
vivid memory
magical.
for me. Yeah. And that kind of translated into my like YouTube channel, which is about like Japanese food and culture and stuff for my half Japanese children to carry on with them, right? And I'm so
Mhm.
excited when they cook with me or when they're in the kitchen with me. So all this food um, talk, discussion, bonding over food was definitely a special place in my heart.
Oh, I'm so glad. And I agree, I completely agree with you. It is magical and those traditions are so important, not only on kind of a granular family scale, but it really is like cultural that those traditions that are passed down, really make those flavors become things that define an entire culture.
Mhm.
And I I have so many references like this is one of those like things that has lived in my head for so long. I was in architecture school so many years ago, and I was studying at the Architectural Association of London at the time. That was what I did for like my year abroad in undergrad. And there was a woman there who was doing a mapping project, and what she had drawn was basically a plan, so like a top-down drawing, and it was kind of mapping how her mother moved through the kitchen and
Mm.
how she reached for things, where her footsteps were, basically how she traced through the kitchen making certain dishes. And I just loved it. I was so obsessed with it as this mapping of movement, but it was so much more than that. It was like, yeah, documenting her history, documenting her mother and like this tradition that was so important to her. Now I'm going. Um, but it was like this beautiful way to capture that. And there's so many other ways to capture that in your life. Like I think the things that we always miss about our grandparents or our parents are like those recipes, and those flavors. And mom's cooking, like there's nothing better. And it's the same with travel. Like Sorry, you really got me. Are you?
I am a feeler too. I cry at all kinds of things, so we are bonding right here. I'll be watching some, I don't even know. My husband will always look at me like, "Are you crying?" I'm like,
You're like, yes, I am. Leave me alone.
"Yes."
But I mean, even traveling or like we're looking back on my time in New York and so many of the restaurants that I really loved and those flavors. I mean, it's so visceral. And it's
Yeah.
just amazing how like the brain works and those pathways in your brain that really like solidifies smell and flavor and memory and the memories of people, and you can be instantly transported back to like a certain place in time, and it is pure magic. It is
It is.
truly unbelievable. Um, I have pivoted this into a joke that I make with drinks, which is that anytime you make like a very tropical drink, it's like a vacation in a glass. You know, it's like the world's most affordable vacation.
Love it.
You know, which is like another way to think about it. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's truly amazing how the brain can connect and make those memories so visceral. You know, with just a couple molecules.
Yeah.
It's
And it's
it's
like a way to invite people into your culture too. I know I've had
mm,
several things where, we've all like shared dishes or invited each other over, and it's just another peek into the person, the culture, their background, and like, yeah, it's food is
yeah,
magical. That's what we're
yeah. Food is magic. Food is
yeah.
definitely magic. And it is like at every level. Like street food is magic, home
Mhm.
cooking is magic, and fine dining is like even more magic because they have like more like stuff going on.
Oh, I think someone said to me the other day, "Oh, I don't eat Japanese food. I don't like raw fish." And I was like, "That's not all there is."
I know there is so much more.
I need
Let
to
me
take
enlighten
you
you.
places, friend.
Let me educate you into the ways. There is so much. I mean,
Like by
Japan
the
is a
end of our
really
friendship, you are going to love Japanese food.
I love it.
So I don't know how people feel about the ending because, spoiler alert again, she doesn't choose the guy, right? It's not like a romance, happily ever after kind of feel. But I actually really liked that because she chose herself, right? And it's leaving the door open, but it's also a no, I'm not just going to take this road. I'm going to explore myself. I'm going to find myself, um, and go down that route first. Um, was that your
Yeah.
hope? Is that okay?
Yeah, that was the hope. It definitely is not a happily ever after ending. Sorry for everybody who likes that. But yeah, the goal was to make it something different, and you know, I felt strongly that at that point she was just starting to get her feet wet. You know, she was just starting to feel more comfortable. She was just starting to build confidence in this new thing she was doing, and it you know it didn't feel natural for her to be like, sure, I'll just follow you wherever. Um, but that said, you know, I think eventually she does choose love. I think that we just haven't gotten there yet. So, you know, I encourage everybody to go out and buy the book and read it so I can write the sequel. And then, you know, in my head I've already been kind of cooking up stories where you know she could meet up with Aemon again. And what does that look like? And what does that feel like? And what is their tension like? What's the drama? What's the next step of drama with them? And you know, how does she respond to it? And how does she grow past it? You know, because I think one thing that's always really beautiful in these books is like when they do get really messy and the characters get super messy and then they kind of have to figure it all out again and, you know, figure out you know, how to move forward. So, so yeah, I think at the end, hopefully she will. But we have it is yet to be determined.
TBD. But I went, oh no, like what is going on? Because it said like maybe for the last time, right? So I was like, is it really for the last time? Or is it, in 5 years? Is it in, I don't know. But it leaves it definitely open to our imagination. And a sequel.
Buy the book,
Yeah.
and then we
And I
can
love
buy
the
the book.
BFF. I love the female relationship too, where,
Everybody loves Ruby.
yeah.
Everybody loves Ruby.
We
Um,
all need a Ruby in our life.
I am lucky to have quite a few Rubies. Ruby is an amalgam of all of my close girlfriends. Um, and there's she is meant to be like the best friend that everybody wants, and the eternal cheerleader, um, always in your corner, and just so much fun and sassy, and free, but also like you know a go getter and like a tough lady. So I I love Ruby, and I'm going to do too. Everybody loves her.
Maybe we'll get more of her in a sequel.
Yeah, maybe we'll get more
What is
Ruby.
her story? Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I need to figure that out. She definitely needs a backstory. That one will be easy though. She's easy. She's easy to
I
write.
can't wait.
There was a point in the editing process where we were going through things and all the editors were like, let's add a Ruby scene here and another one here. We need another one here. And I was like, oh yeah, I get the message.
Lots of Ruby.
Lots of Ruby. We love Ruby. Okay.
I like to do quick fire questions to
Yes.
wrap up our interviews. I
Great.
think I'm going to do five if you're up for five quick fire.
However many you want to do.
Okay, the first one is, what are you reading right now? Since you did release a book. I don't know if you're an avid reader. If you're like me, you might have multiple different kinds, like an audiobook and a Kindle and a physical book, but any book that you are reading right now.
I just started An Unlikely Story by Ali Rosen, and I am just barely into it, so I can't give you any sort of review, but that is one that I am reading right now and I'm very excited about. Um, and yeah, I've had a little bit of a hiatus from reading. So in true disclosure, I am like getting back into it, but I'm excited about this book. So I'm really looking forward to just tearing through it.
Excellent. Do you have a all-time favorite book or author?
Oh, that's a hard one. All-time favorite.
I don't know if I can pick one either, but
Love in the Time of Cholera. It's pretty
Mm.
spectacular. I love that book. Um, yeah, let's
Is
just
there a
stick with that one.
genre? Is there a genre that you usually lean toward?
I kind of bounce all over the place. I bounce from like women's fiction, romance. I do like some magical realism. Um, for a long time, I was really trying to read like literature, and these like really intense cocktail science books, and they're just so boring. It just got so boring. So in recent years, I've been reading lighter stuff, and it has really, really been bringing me joy.
You're like me. I read everything. I was pretty much like non fiction as a kid, and then nonfiction, and then came back into the fiction world with Romantasy. My coworker started that, and then I'm back into fiction with all kinds of fiction. Anyway, I I digress. What was your favorite sponsored trip that you went on, or
Oh,
your press trip?
this is also a hard one. I did some pretty amazing ones.
I believe it. I'm so jealous.
One of the true highlights was the Martell 300-year anniversary trip, and that one was to Paris, and we ate at the Jules Verne. We went to Cognac to visit the Martell home of Martell, and we stayed at the Peninsula Hotel, which had just opened, and it was like very fancy, very bushy, and we uh, we went to a black tie event at Versailles. So that was like pretty
Whew.
ridiculous. It was pretty ridiculous. And then there was another one I went on with Bollinger champagne or Bollinger, depending on where you're at. The English apparently like to say Bollinger, but the French obviously say Bollinger. But that was like an incredible trip. So that one they had just renovated all of their cellars in Champagne, and when they were renovating it, this like intern found a hidden part of the cellar that nobody had known about for like since World War II. And they moved this like rack of champagne bottles, and behind it was like the archive of the brand. And so they found all of these bottles from like 1917 and, from like 1944, I think, until probably like 1906, or do not quote me on that date, but there was definitely a 1917 there. So or 1914, I don't remember. 1914. I don't remember. Anyway, but it was like their archive. So what they had done was all these people had stashed the like most historic valuable bottles from this winery in this like hidden cellar. And during the wars, the people were like living in the cellars underneath because the trenches were like right there. And so that was an incredible trip just to really understand the history of that region and the people. And then we got to taste some of these wines. Like it like started with like, we had like a 1993, and then it was like a 1973, and it was like a 1955, made from the vines that were pre Phylloxera vines, and like it was just this like incredible experience. And then it kept getting older and older and older, and then we tasted these like extremely old vintages from like 1917, and that was just you get much of it, but it was just amazing to think that you were tasting this liquid that was made by women and children because all the men were at war, they were on the front lines, and just the history that was like embedded in those grapes in those bottles. And it was truly like one of the most unique experiences I've ever had. And those are the kinds of things that like money can't buy that. Like that's not a tour they offer, you know. So, again, it was just I was super, super lucky and very blessed to be there. But yeah, those were two that really stood out for like special, very, very special experiences.
Oh, oh,
I know you have
like,
fun. You
oh,
got two.
no.
It's just bonkers. It's totally bonkers. Like
What is your favorite thing to photograph? Because I know you like photography, you got into it.
my son,
Mm.
he's probably my favorite. No, but other than that, I liquids. I really like liquids. There's something really, and sunsets, like landscapes. I like landscapes, very minimal photographs that look like Rothko paintings. Um, but there's something really amazing about liquids, like how they carry light, how they bounce light, you know, how they refract, and just how the glass moves and the liquid moves. Um, I find it to be very alive, even when it's like still in the glass. And there's challenges to it, like you're dealing with ice and bubbles and like garnishes, and things don't last very long. So that's part of it too. You can't spend an hour photographing one drink. It's like you have to be quick about it. Um, but but yeah, so I'm lucky that I get to be a drinks photographer.
And your kid, I would absolutely say my kids too, and my
Yeah,
family.
yeah.
My husband doesn't like the camera, so he doesn't get photographed as much, but
I always tell I'm like, honey, look heroic. It's like very fun.
yeah.
I've got him trained now.
For our last quick fire, very important question. I'm taking a question from your book. What vegetable would you say you are? Have you thought about this?
I feel like I had an answer at one point in time. Um, I love these kind of dumb questions. What animal would you be? What vegetable would you be?
You
Um,
know, in I put it into Chat GPT. I had an answer for my own self, and I put it in Chat GPT, and they changed it into a very cool answer. But anyway,
what are you?
so I was kind of thinking, I feel like a carrot because it seems kind of just like normal, every day. It's consistent. Most people like it. It's in a lot of dishes, dependable, right? But it can also change drastically when it's like cooked or stressed, or like some really don't like it when it gets cooked or mushy and things, and there's just different
Yeah.
versions, like yellow, purple, fun ways to enjoy it. But ChatGPT based on the things that I've used it for. Thought I was a kabocha squash.
Oh,
Perhaps because I'm Japanese, rooted in culture. It said rooted in culture, nourishing but underrated, sweet and versatile, beautiful inside and out. Although it's not really pretty on the outside, so I don't know where that's coming from. But
it has its
anyway,
beauty.
had some fun things.
I like a kabocha squash.
It's one
Pretty
of my
good.
favorites, actually.
We can't get them here. I've never seen one here. We used to buy them all the time in New York. We would make them all the time. That's definitely one of the things I miss.
And even
Um,
the carrot, it had some neat. Um, It's so like bright and cheerful. It grows underground but shines when it's out. It's good for your eyes. You help others see a new perspective. Kid friendly but still complex. Universal with many cultural expressions. I was like, oh, this is getting deep. Getting deep. My
ChatGPT
simple
going for the
thoughts
gold.
originally, but
Going for the gold. I don't know what vegetable would I be. I can't believe I haven't really thought about this. I mean, like my knee jerk reaction is that I mean, there's a lot of Cassie that is me. In everybody's debut book, well, I'm not going to say everybody, but Cassie is based a lot on me. She's very similar to me. So I probably too would be a cauliflower. Um, I joke that I am also an octopus, that I, have all these different arms and tentacles and can change color like I'm a shapeshifter. So I guess the cauliflower is kind of the vegetable version of an octopus. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else. I'll have to think about it more. I'm probably a cauliflower. I can be a pizza crust. I can be a salad. I can be rice. I can be whatever you want me to be.
yeah, yeah. If you think about it and you're like, oh, actually, this is my better answer, let me
Okay, I will. I'll get back to you. It's a good question, though, and a good party game.
know.
Good conversation starter.
I thought it was fun and it was like woven in throughout the book, right? So it was cute.
Thank you. I loved that callback. I thought it was fun too. I'm a potato.
Where can people connect with you? Where can people find you?
You can find me on gastronomista with an underscore at the end on Instagram. Um, or you can find me through my website, emilyardenwells.com.
Perfect. And we'll have all the links too, so people don't need to scribble furiously. But just so you
Okay.
know, you can connect
Thank
with us
you.
and go pick up the book. It was fantastic. If
Thank
you are
you.
thoughtful on all these big decisions, and life changes, you will absolutely love it as much as I did. Let us know what you think too. Come back and comment and let us know and connect with Emily. Let her know what you think. Hopefully, they're all great things. And if you have constructive stuff, then be nice about it.
No trolls. Please, no trolls.
Kindness. We talked about kindness today.
Yeah, I don't have the mental bandwidth for that. But no, thank you so much for your time. This was such a great conversation. And yeah, thank you for inviting me and for reading my book and for loving it. Thank you.